Hello, folks. I'm back. It's been a while. Life stuff gets in the way as usual, but I'm back to read you some more of the 12 Caesars by our guy Suetonius. So when we last left off, which was I read paragraphs 10 through 15, our guy Julius Caesar had started off as an aedile, one of the political positions in Rome, and had moved his way up to praetor. And during that time, he was praetor during the famous Catiline conspiracy, and he was against capital punishment against Catiline and his conspirators, so much so that Roman soldiers in the Senate threatened him and put a sword to him, which caused our guy to dip and not go back to the Senate for the rest of that year. So that's where we left off. Praetor Julius Caesar, and I'm going to begin, excuse me, today with paragraph 16. We're going to see how far we get. Once again, I'm not a classicist. I'm not a academic, college graduated classicist. I'm just a simple guy who got back into Latin after I took it for 1 year in high school 30 plus years ago because my best mate, who's a classicist, inspired me to take it back up again. So I take it through the Helen McVeigh Classics Academy. And just this year, I also started taking ancient Greek. But I've never really read the classical works from ancient Greece and Rome. So Suetonius, this is brand new for me. I'm reading every paragraph for the first time. I don't jump ahead. I do take a little notes after so I can maybe make some shorts that I can drop later as I get different names and places and I want to look them up and try to inform you who may also have never read this before, who may have no knowledge of Rome or ancient times, but maybe you're interested in it, but you never wanted to get into it because you feel like it's too much. There's too many things to learn. And I felt like that too for a while. But I have found the best way to get into something is just to read it. And then you can come up with your own opinions and also trying to find out how they looked at their own lives and their culture, their language, and the things that they went through. Um, because instead of looking at it from the terms of you can only look at it from now, or you can only look at it from their point of view, my argument is, and this is just for me, why can't you do both? Why can't you learn about the people, how they saw themselves? And also, still, you have the right to voice your own opinion. I don't see where that's wrong, but that's just me. You don't have to follow that just because I feel that way. So you may see me give my own opinions on things. You don't have to pay them any mind. That's just what I think. And you may see me ask questions about certain events because I'm not filled in on them. I didn't go to school for them. So I'm going to read these for the first time. We'll take it in together and see what happens. So our guy was a praetor last time. He was dodging the Senate. I guess after somebody takes a gladius and introduces it to the outside of your abdomen and tells you better shut up, I might have dipped too. So let's see where this guy is going and how he creeps closer and closer towards becoming the emperor of Rome. Chapter 16. He afterwards approved himself a most resolute supporter of Caecilius Metellus, tribune of the people, who, in spite of all opposition from his colleagues, had proposed some laws of a violent tendency, until they were both dismissed from office by a vote of the Senate. He ventured, notwithstanding, to retain his post and continue in the administration of justice, but finding that preparations were made to obstruct him by force of arms, he dismissed the lictors, threw off his gown, and betook himself privately to his own house, with the resolution of being quiet, in a time so unfavorable to his interest. He likewise pacified the mob, which 2 days afterwards flocked about him, and in a riotous manner made a voluntary tender of their assistance in the vindication of his honor. This happening contrary to expectation, the Senate, who met in haste on account of the tumult, gave him their thanks by some of the leading members of the House, and sending for him after high commendation of his conduct, canceled their former vote and restored him to his office. Okay. So it's never a dull moment in good old Rome. upheavals, conflicts. People start arguing, and then it leads to fighting in the streets and in the Senate. Uh, um, I just keep thinking about like, what if like I'm in America, so like, what if they were just literally fist fighting and stabbing each other in like the Senate and the House of Representatives, like every so many months or every couple of years? Like, you think your politics are wild now? It's paragraph 17. But he soon got into fresh trouble. Uh, right, of course, that's our guy. Being named amongst the accomplices of Catiline, the same guy who earlier was caught in a conspiracy, and he was so adamant against giving him capital punishment that he just wanted their goods taken away from them and then put on basically house arrest. Um, Now they got him locked up with them, which kind of makes sense, I guess, because I could see senators maybe thinking, why does he want them to get off so easy? And then they're like, okay. Both before Novius Niger, the quaestor, by Lucius Vettius, the informer, and in the Senate by Quintus Curius, to whom a reward had been voted for having first discovered the designs of the conspirators. Also, keep in mind, if you've watched one of my earlier videos where I went back to paragraphs, might have been 7 to 9, um, Caesar was already accused of a conspiracy before with Marcus Crassus to kill the Senate, or as many members as they could get knives into. So, yeah. Curius affirmed that he had received his information from Catiline. Okay. Vettius even engaged to produce in evidence against him his own handwriting given to Catiline. Caesar, feeling that this treatment was not to be borne, appealed to Cicero himself whether he had not voluntarily made a discovery to him of some particulars of the conspiracy, and so balked Curius of his expected reward. He, therefore, obliged Vettius to give pledges for his behavior, seized the goods, and after heavily fining him, and seeing him almost torn in pieces before the rostra, threw him into prison, to which he likewise sent Novius the quaestor, for having presumed to take an information against a magistrate of superior authority. Okay, so he survives again. This guy's got more lives than 12 cats, but okay. Yeah, interesting. I could see why they would think he was part of Catiline's conspiracy because he wanted to be, in their eyes, too lenient on them. Um, but it also just seems odd he'd get accused of it. Uh, oh well. Paragraph 18. At the expiration of his praetorship, he obtained by lot the farther Spain. So farther Spain, way back, and I think it was might have been paragraph 7. I looked it up. That is part that they called Hispana, but it's like in the eastern portion of Spain. It's not necessarily the whole of what we understand Spain to be now. That's where he went to Gades, which now is Cadiz, to the Spaniards. And he went to the Temple of Hercules, saw that statue of Alexander the Great, and felt really insecure that he wasn't doing enough. And that statue, plus the dream he had later that the following night, told him he had to go be great and wonderful, and had inspired him in all the concluding paragraphs that he has to force himself into greatness somehow. So he attains by lot the farther Spain and pacified his creditors, who were for detaining him by finding sureties for his debts. Contrary, however, to both law and custom, he took his departure before the usual equipage and outfit were prepared. It is uncertain whether this precipitancy arose from the apprehension of an impeachment with which he was threatened on the expiration of his former office, or from his anxiety to lose no time in relieving the allies, who implored him to come to their aid. He had no sooner established tranquillity in the province than, without waiting for the arrival of his successor, he returned to Rome with equal haste to sue for a triumph and the consulship. The day of election, however, being already fixed by proclamation, he could not legally be admitted a candidate unless he entered the city as a private person. On this emergency, he solicited a suspension of the laws in his favor. Of course he did. But such an indulgence being strongly opposed, he found himself under the necessity of abandoning all thoughts of a triumph, lest he should be disappointed of the consulship. Uh, yeah, yeah, it's interesting. Roman law influences a lot of modern Western laws. Um, but I don't know that. But let me preface this by saying he's in a position of power first. He's not just some random guy on the street. But it's interesting that he can just try to like waive the law in his favor. Uh, yeah, but so I mean, it's back then is like now, where we see people, we're a country of laws, but laws get either not followed or left on the books. So there's a lot of comparison between the past and the present here. Paragraph 19. Of the two other competitors for the consulship, Lucius Liccius and Marcus Bibulus, he joined with the former, upon condition that Lucius, being a man of less interest but greater affluence, should promise money to the electors in their joint names. Upon which the party of the nobles, dreading how far he might carry matters in that high office, with a colleague disposed to concur in and second his measures, advised Bibulus to promise the voters as much as the other, and most of them contributed towards the expense. Cato himself admitting that bribery, under such circumstances, was for the public good. Okay. He was accordingly elected consul jointly with Bibulus. Actuated still by the same motives, the prevailing party took care to assign provinces of small importance to the new consuls, such as the care of the woods and roads. Caesar, incensed at this indignity, endeavored by the most assiduous and flattering attentions to gain to his side Cnaeus Pompey. Ah, now there is a name that's going to come up with Caesar a lot in good ways and then later bad. So Pompey has entered the scene, everybody. Okay. At that time, dissatisfied with the Senate for the backwardness they shewed to confirm his acts after his victories over Mithridates, he likewise brought about a reconciliation between Pompey and Marcus Crassus, who had been at variance from the time of their joint consulship, in which the office they were continually clashing, and he entered into an agreement with both, that nothing should be transacted in the government which was displeasing to any of the three. Interesting. I wonder if people would consider that, or historians or classicists might consider that to be like uh, holding the government hostage. Hmm. Hmm. All right. Last one. We'll go with paragraph 20 and see if we end up on a cliffhanger. Having entered upon his office, he introduced a new regulation that the daily acts of both the Senate and people should be committed to writing and published. He also revived an old custom that an officer should precede him and his lictors follow him on the alternate months when the fasces were not carried before him. Upon preferring a bill to the people for the division of some public lands, he was opposed by his colleague, whom he violently drove out of the forum. Next day, the insulted consul made a complaint in the Senate of his treatment, but such was the consternation that no one having the courage to bring the matter forward or move a censure, which had been often done under outrages of less importance, he was so much dispirited that until the expiration of his office he never stirred from home, and did nothing but issue edicts to obstruct his colleagues' proceedings. From that time, therefore, Caesar had the sole management of public affairs, insomuch that some wags, okay, when they signed any instrument as witnesses, did not add, quote unquote, in the consulship of Caesar and Bibulus, but, quote unquote, of Julius and Caesar, putting the same person down twice under his name and surname. The following verses likewise were currently repeated on this occasion. Non bibulo quidquam nuper sed Caesari factum est, non bibulo fieri consule nil memine. Nothing was done in Bibulus's year. No, Caesar only then was consul here. The land of Stellas, consecrated by our ancestors to the gods, with some other lands in Campania left subject to tribute, for the support of the expenses of the government he divided, but not by lot, among upwards of 20,000 freemen, who had each of them 3 or more children. He eased the publicans upon their petition of a third part of the sum which they had engaged to pay into the public treasury, and openly admonished them not to bid so extravagantly upon the next occasion. He made various profuse grants to meet the wishes of others, no one opposing him, or if any such attempt was made, it was soon suppressed. Marcus Cato, who interrupted him in his proceedings, he ordered to be dragged out of the Senate house by a lictor and carried to prison. Lucius Lucullus, likewise, for opposing him with some warmth, he so terrified with the apprehension of being criminated that, to deprecate the consul's resentment, he fell on his knees. And upon Cicero's lamenting in some trial the miserable condition of the times, he the very same day, by 9 o'clock, transferred his enemy, Publius Clodius, from a patrician to a plebeian family, a change which had long solicited in vain. At last, effectually to intimidate all those of the opposite party, he by great rewards prevailed upon Vettius to declare that he had been solicited by certain persons to assassinate Pompey, and when he was brought before the rostra to name those who had been concerted between them, after naming 1 or 2 to no purpose, not without great suspicion of subornation, Caesar, despairing of success in this rash stratagem, is supposed to have taken off his informer by poison. Okay. Every paragraph is an entire season of a soap opera. I, I, wow. I mean, there are some really gaudy Rome shows on like Netflix and such. But wow, why were they trying so hard with some of the stuff that they were just making up when they could have just done one paragraph out of Suetonius? This so at this point we leave off. Caesar is already basically, as far as I can tell, an emperor. He's already what we would call later the Caesar, a czar, a dictator. He's already that guy. Nobody's really opposing him. Anybody who does is literally carted off or has their abilities or powers or anything just raised. So this cat's already taken over. Rome is his. That's where we're ending season 4 of Julius Caesar. Rome is his. He's on. He's got it on lockdown. He's standing on top of the Capitol with some great orchestral music playing. He's got his fist on his hips. He's already weenied his own country, and yeah, it was a long road, but he got there. And I gotta say, personally, at this point, I can see why they stabbed this cat later on. I, I nobody nowadays would like a guy like this. Centuries of history, people have gone on and on about Julius Caesar. Um, and granted, I haven't read any of his writings. I've heard some from some friends that his stuff is a bit boring. Um, it's very military, but I do want to get to that at some point to see what I can glean out of it. But right now, um, if you transferred this guy to the present, I think he'd get just as much hate as what the Senate and them think of him back then. I don't really think it's too much of a stretch to say, modern thinking of how this guy was, is trying to push just, modern agenda on the past. Because in the past, they clearly do not like him. In the past, they clearly do not like his style of rule. If you can even call it a style, when you just force yourself on people, is that style? I don't know. However, paragraphs 16 through 20 are highly invigorating. This is just a perfect TV show. It would be a great miniseries. I'm still loving the step-by-step storyline of Caius Julius Caesar. I'm still hooked. Suetonius still has me in his grip. Granted, I don't believe every single thing he wrote, because Julius Caesar was born, I think, around 100 before the Common Era, BCE, or BC, more commonly used, and died in the classic Ides of March 44 BCE. Suetonius is, I think it's like 69 Common Era or AD, commonly used. So he's 100 plus years. He was born 100 plus years after Caesar was killed. So he's writing this over a century later. He's writing everything out of written sources that are now long since gone that we don't know about probably, and hearsay. And that's pretty much how historians were writing things in ancient times. So I don't necessarily take every single thing paragraph for paragraph, sentence for sentence, and say, oh, all of this is accurate. For all I know, 90% of this could be wrong. All I'm doing is reading this for the first time, giving my initial impressions on it. Who knows what I'll think if I read this a year or so from now. But man, this is riveting. This is why I love history my whole life. This is what I come here for. It doesn't have to always be anywhere near this dramatic because this cat's gone, but he's gone. He's trying so hard to be Alexander the Great, but the way he's going about it, I don't know. But anyway, he's definitely got Rome jumping at this point. So that's where I'm going to leave it this time. I'm going to maybe drop some shorts, one or more, on some different names and places and events, like maybe the Catalan conspiracy would probably be the main one because it goes on for so long. And I'm not sure Cato seems to still be gone after this point. Um, I seem to feel like Cato got killed at some point. Maybe I'm remembering that wrong. It's been a while, but I'll look that up. I'll drop some shorts on all this stuff, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, this is really going good. I am loving reading this book, and I'm only a couple pages in. I hope anybody who watches this enjoyed it. Let me know if you watch it, what you think about these chapters, these paragraphs, I mean, and what you think about Caesar and the power grab he's done and the Senate's reaction to it. Do you like it? Do you agree with it? Do you hate it? Just don't care? And any corrections. If anybody watches this who actually is an ancient Roman historian, please always feel free to talk to me. Let me know whatever parts Suetonius in the paragraphs I've read was right about, wrong about, or things that are just not known, because I'd love to hear from you. But until next time, hope you guys are cool. You stay safe. Keep yourself in some books. Learn about your history of every culture. And I'll see you next time.